Hi, this is Dr. Michelle Robin with Small Changes, Big Shifts, Building Rhythm and Resilience. And I believe if you'll change one thing a month, one thing for the next 12 months, you'll change your life forever. Thanks for joining me on the journey. Welcome back to Small Changes, Big Shifts, Building Rhythm and Resilience. Happy New Year. I know some of you know that I've been off for a few weeks, so it's good to be back, and I'm really excited about the show for many reasons. Let me introduce my first guest today. It's Patrick Porter. He has a PhD, and he's an award-winning author, educator, consultant, entrepreneur, and speaker. With 30 years of experience operating the largest self-help franchise, he has become a highly sought-after expert within the personal improvement industry, having sold over 7 million of his self-help products worldwide. He invented the first portable light and sound neuro-trainer, and over 2,100 clinics has sold millions of his 800 brain hacking sessions. And many of you have maybe heard Patrick before. He's been following this show. He's been on the show a couple times. Instrumental in my healing from my bike accident. Dr. Porter, welcome back to Small Changes.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
So, wow, what a year for BrainTap Technologies. First of all, if you don't mind, show our listeners a device and then why you designed the device.
Okay. Yeah, I just started it up so they could see there's lights flashing in the eyes. There's lights in the ears, which we can go over a little bit. It's very easy to use. Right now, I have it hooked up through Bluetooth, but you can also hook it up through wire if you don't want to do the Bluetooth model. But the main reason I did it was back in the 80s when I invented the technology, there was no such thing as this. And we were working with pain clinics, and I was trying to do biofeedback, or there was no neurofeedback then. So we were using breath, respiration, but when somebody's in a high degree of pain, they couldn't do it. And then what we found out from there was, hey, this could work for attention deficit disorder. This could work for weight loss. This can work for, insomnia and all these different things that came out of it, because once you regulate the nervous system, the body naturally heals itself. So that's where we're going with it. And really, for me, I was for those who didn't see the earlier show, I was a very gifted troublemaker. And my dad taught us some technology-driven meditation at the time, which was sound-based. And ever since then, since I was 12, I've been doing that, creating sessions, and really keeping myself sane, because I was a pretty, as a teenager, I was pretty wild. So, or before that, actually, I tell people I went through my midlife crisis at 12 instead of 30. So that's what happened.
So you've said several things there. First of all, talk about the nervous system. As a chiropractor, I get it. But as maybe people listening don't. So talk about your expertise and your knowledge about the nervous system.
Yeah, when we think about the nervous system, think of, I'm just going to talk about the brain part of it. 70% of the nervous system is in our head. So and then the rest is, of course, what we all know. We all think of it as the spine. The spine is the keyboard to the brain, bringing all that sensory-based information to the brain, which interprets it and figures it out. But we have a part of our brain, which I like to call the thriving brain. That's where we all want to be. They call it the parasympathetic nervous system. And then we have the survivor brain, which is the sympathetic system, which is the fight or flight. Unfortunately, most people are locked up in their survivor brain, especially during what's happening out there in the world. I mean, if we're not doing the things that are natural to our brain, we are social beings. So if we're not socializing, we're not interacting. I mean, very few people live as hermits. They live in communities. They do these things. These all work to build our neural network. As far as even our cities, somebody did a map of our growth across the world, and it looked like a brain and neurons firing, when you look at our planet from space. So we cluster together, we work together, and our brain works the same way. So what we found was that when somebody has, Hebb's law kind of states this, those neurons that fire together, wire together. So behavior is really everything we do that we learn from a mom, dad, brother, sister, preacher, teacher, all those people. It actually first was something we saw or observed using mirror neurons, and then we either liked it, we mimicked it and started doing it, and then our brain made those stronger, or we didn't like them, and then those habits unwire. As we get older, or what I like to say, better looking and more intelligent with age, what happens is we get fixed because our brain is an energy hog. That brain uses our 5-pound brain, like in my body, would use up 25% of the energy of the system. So you're talking about something that takes up maybe, 2.5% of the body weight is using 25% of the energy. That's oxygen, nutrients, all of those things. So if any of those things are off, through trauma, through some kind of toxins, whether it's environmental or what's going on in the food we're doing, or if we have negative thoughts, it's going to cause a burden. Once it's a burden in the brain, it's a burden on the body. And so we want to balance that out. So we like to work with clinics that are doing both. A lot of our clinics will do what's necessary with the body mechanics, and we'll do the mental side of it, or we'll reinforce it that way, because I think that works the best. So part of it is, just think about it, is that our brain learns, I like what Queen Elizabeth said, we learn the same way as monkeys from our parents, but it's really anybody we think is important. And that continues through our whole life. We're always imitating people, whether conscious or unconscious.
Well, your wellness connection, we use a model called Quadrants of Well-Being: mechanical, chemical, energetical, psycho-spiritual. And one of the tools we use in the psycho-spiritual is brain tap technologies, as well as practicing gratitude. And of course, mechanically, chiropractic, massage, posture exercises. Chemically, hydration. The brain needs hydration. It also needs essential fatty acids. And then, of course, the energetical quadrant of looking about how do we maybe turn off these devices, like people right now are addicted to the news, and how do we shut that down so it's not hogging our brain energy. I liked how you said, Patrick, I don't ever recall you saying thriving brain versus surviving, the thriving part of the nervous system versus surviving. So thank you for sharing that. It's been an interesting year with depression and anxiety. What have you seen as far as from your clinics, 1,700 plus clinics using, 2,100 clinics using brain tap technology? What are you seeing reported back from your clinics?
Well, they're reporting back that people are more stressed than ever. I mean, especially the ones that can report back using like HRV technology or the WAVI or some of these other technologies. We're finding that people, they're paralyzed because the brain really wants certainty. And right now, there's one thing we're all lacking is certainty, because we don't know. They say that over 70% of the people do not trust mainstream media, but still they're still following them because they don't have another source. They don't have a trusted source. So that's where their doctors come in, helping them to educate them that obviously it's bad, but there are things you can do to prepare yourself to be healthy. You don't have to prepare yourself for doom and gloom in that. And I think that the main thing people are finding is when you're under stress, especially chronic low-level stress, it's going to exacerbate every one of those other problems. It's going to put a magnifying glass on all those other things. When you're stressed, you actually create more pain in the body, or you perceive more pain. I shouldn't say it's probably the same. It's just your body's not producing the neurochemicals that soften that. And also, stress causes sleeping problems. What we're hearing back is I probably get more emails than ever from what's the protocol for sleep? What should I recommend they do? And one thing that we know is that most people don't prepare for sleep. They turn off their television, walk into their bedroom, and think they can go to sleep. That's not the way it works. We need to have some sleep hygiene there, which is to turn off the TV at least an hour before sleep and, get your brain ready for that. Of course, 90% of our brain tap users use it right before sleep. Some people can't use the lights, obviously, because it's too much energy for their brain or nervous system. But the real issue is the morning. People are waking up, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is look at your phone and start answering emails, one of the things we tell, think of ancient civilizations. If you and I were Plains Indians and we woke up in the morning, we would, wake up at sunrise. We'd walk out to the campfire. We'd talk about, hey, today I'm a hunter, you're a gatherer. We would go out and do it. We wouldn't start stressing out right away, and then we would wake up to the light of the sun. Most people in my TED talk that I just did a few months ago, I talked about the worst thing you can do for your nervous system is set an alarm. Now, there are alarms you can set that are good, but most people set these alarms that their nervous system gets jacked up first thing in the morning, and they don't realize what they're doing is they're setting themselves up at night. If I set my alarm and mine plays a little mantra, if I do set it, but I hardly ever hear it, because unless I'm traveling and I'm only going to get 3 hours sleep. But the reality is that if you set it at night and you're going to hear this, your brain knows that. So you're sleeping in the back of your mind, hey, you're going to hear this and then it's going to jack your system. Your nervous system is going to get jacked. And then depending upon how you respond, if you have a good functioning nervous system, no problem. You bounce right back, you're doing it. But unfortunately, it's like a gear shift. And we have 5 gears, let's say, but most people are only running in 2 of those gears, fight or flight or passed out. And we need those others to mitigate all the other issues that are going on in the brain. We need those other brainwave states. In other words, we need that, whether it be the deep sleep waves, which are slow brain waves, or we need the fast waves, like even up to gamma when people are being creative. Like when we know that person that is the high intuitive or the artist or the healer, they usually have a lot of gamma brainwaves going. And if they're not able to have that behavioral flexibility, basically it's like driving. I tell people it's like driving a car in San Francisco, but you only have 2 gears. You're going to get in trouble because of the hills and everything that's going on there. So we need to have that flexibility.
Another great word. So what I want to do is I want to bring on my other guest, Carron Montgomery, here in just a second. But for those of you listening, we did the kindness series, and then we did the kindness campaign, then we did the gratitude series, and we're going to be launching into, on February 1st, a sleep series. So what I'm going to do over the next few weeks is I'm going to kind of help you understand why sleep is so important, and then we're going to give you a 21-day strategy to shift your sleep. And so just to give you a heads up, we've been working on that, and we'll be rolling that out. So you'll watch your emails or watch our Facebook, because you'll be able to sign up for that here by the next week or so. So I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Advent Health, who's a great community partner in Kansas City and around the world, actually, as well as around the country, as well as Community America. Think about sleeping at night. Nothing like knowing that you have a good wellness team around you if shift hits the fan, and also having a good financial partner.
Wealth to me is big family vacations.
Houses, cars.
Money, mostly, yeah.
Am I wealthy? No, I wouldn't call myself wealthy.
Didn't have a lot of money, never really had a lot of money.
Med school certainly isn't cheap.
How'd you get this picture?
This is Molly. It started pouring down rain, and we hid under the tree.
I wake up in the morning and I see her smile, and I know she's the love of my life. I think of her nonstop. She's just totally unbelievable. I wasn't expecting this.
Hey, Mama. That means she loves me.
Am I a wealthy guy?
Absolutely.
I may not have financial riches, but
I am wealthy.
So joining me today as well, and today now I'm going to shift it, Patrick, just so you know, I'm going to shift this to about our kids. We have a foundation called Big Shifts Foundation, and its goal is to make generational change for 5 to 30-year-olds through whole person health. And we want to put the odds in their favor as they recover from the crisis, as the world recovers from the crisis we're in right now, that they are able to thrive, use their thriving nervous system. So Carron started private practice 9 years ago with a couple other women. She specializes in treating anxiety, depression, OCD, trauma, grief, and loss. She's a professional counselor, registered play therapist, a level 2 EMDR. She's just amazing. Cat's meow, understands a lot about what our kids are going through. I want to invite her on to give you a snapshot of what she's been seeing, not just the last 6 or 8 months, but prior to that as well. Carron, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and a big fan of Brain Tap. So absolutely, this is perfect discussion. I have the wonderful opportunity of working with that 5 to 30-year-old age group. And I started speaking about 6-7 months ago, never intended to speak or write, but what I was seeing was just so heavy that I had no choice but to start talking. My clients were teaching me so much. They were teaching me about this global uncertainty. They were teaching me about how all of the coping skills that they had, very few were healthy, but the healthy ones they had were stripped away from the pandemic. They were lost, lonely, felt like they were on an emotional roller coaster, and really no one to guide them. I think particularly our teens and tweens, we go from that interdependence to independence. But the pandemic is really causing us to need that extra step of creativity. And I think BrainTap is that perfect resource that allows us to have something at home that we can easily access. It's funny, when Dr. Porter was talking, I always explain to kids about their brain. I think it's really important to get that buy-in of, I want to use something, but why? So, teaching them, our brain is a muscle, and it's like if you work out, you're strengthening your biceps, and we have to work our brain out. And it works a lot better when we use the whole brain instead of when we just use little parts. And so a lot of Dr. Porter's different segments speak to the different parts of the brain that we want to strengthen. And I think it's even more important now than ever because we're lacking things. And so many kids have been left to be in their brain for the first time ever in their life, because our society has been so fast-paced and rewarding, go, 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 that I saw a massive increase in anxiety, sudden onset of OCD with no family history. In the past 2 months, I've seen a major increase in panic disorder, and that's across all ages, obviously depression, anxiety, and just an overall sense of hopelessness and helplessness. So it's a big deal. This is the mental health pandemic, and it will continue once the physical pandemic ends, and we don't have anything without our mental health because they are connected. Mental and physical go together, whether we like it or not. And I think we all need to just work together in a holistic way and provide outlets. So BrainTap is a perfect resource that I have recommended to many of my clients. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have 3 kids if it wasn't for you, because I did BrainTap so much. I decided I needed one more kid. And I even chose to wait to go to the hospital because I was in a BrainTap session. My husband thought I'd lost my mind.
Yeah. So Carron, you've been using BrainTap for, how many years?
Well, Hank is 4, so probably 5 years, I believe.
Man, I've been using it for 5 years as well. It's a wonderful technology.
And I started in the pandemic. My son, who is 7.5, who started to have one of the things I've also noticed as a clinician is a lot of things that we thought we had dealt with are resurfacing without an invitation. And he had really worked hard to work on his anxiety, but the pandemic brought it up, and he does BrainTap and he loves it. And so, sometimes people think, oh, a little kid won't. Well, he's 7.5. He's 8. My daughter's 7, but they both use it, and he uses it all the time. And I've really taught him about his brain and why we want to strengthen it so that they know what we're doing, because kids don't really have any buy-in unless they know why. And so really helping them understand, like, our brain is plastic. We can change it. It's so cool. And teaching them the ways to do that. And you can do it in a number of ways. And then they get hooked and they see. But the other thing that's really important is not just the kids doing it, but if the parents are doing it, that means they're providing co-regulation. That means their mirror neurons are regulating a room. And our kids need that right now more than ever. And so I've done some trainings with schools, and I'm really hopeful to get some BrainTap. I donated one to our church, things like that for kids to just go and sit and re-regulate. Because right now we're at this point too in the pandemic where we're seeing a lot of compassion fatigue, which means people are not motivated. And so the BrainTap is a really good way to access that motivation and to keep it going, and then to model, like Dr. Porter was talking about before. If we model that for our kids, they pick up on it, and that growth mindset and the way that we our inner dialogue, and really we're trying to teach them an internal locus of control, and these sessions really do that, and it's really powerful. So I just can't speak highly enough about them.
Well, I think it's good stuff. And what you were talking about, and Dr. Porter, you mentioned this a little bit ago, is at nighttime, it's not really optimal to use the headset, because at nighttime, you're trying to just, dial down. But in the morning, in my perfect day, I call it my A day. I actually do a 13-minute session in the morning for focus or concentration or whatever I'm needing that day. And it really helps me get charged up for the day. And what I love about the headset, not only does it, and I want you to talk about what the lights in the eyes actually do, but I love the lasers in the ears. You know, my teacher was Dr. Yenny, who brought acupuncture to America, and I love that there's lasers to treat the acupuncture points in the ear. So talk a little bit about the eyes, why that's important. Actually, just go into the details. There's 4 parts to the technology.
Yeah, let me show. So you can see it's kind of flashing here. Of course, it's not going to be the same as if you're wearing it, but it'll be close. That light, actually, your eyes, a lot of people don't realize this, but your eyes control 30% of your hearing. So if you've ever been to a lecture or even at school, when people aren't following, if they don't have a line of sight to the teacher, they're not hearing everything because it doesn't activate different regions of the brain. Your frontal cortex shuts down, and that's the reasoning power. So that's why it's really important that we have line of sight. It's also part of our primitive brain and how it was designed. I mean, if we heard everything, our eyes bring in 2,000 pieces of information, but we usually only act on 40. So, you know, but we're going to activate it in a way that those light pathways and the brain, when we use our hearing, we activate, like I said, about 70% of the brain. When we activate our eyes in the light, it activates 100% of our brain. So our brain has to be, because it's daytime, it thinks it's, hey, let's wake up, what's going on out there? So now we've woke up the brain. And one thing that we know is we live in a synchronized universe. One of the things I encourage people to do is go to YouTube and look up synchronizing metronomes. A metronome is a tool they use for building rhythm and cadence. A lot of times the piano or there's actually a lot for working with autistic children too and things like that to get their brains going. But we know that within 3 to 4 minutes, all those metronomes are going to be synchronized. They can do it with grandfather clocks. We also know that's true with the brain. So every brain tap session, the first 4 minutes is a synchronizing session. Now they're all different because the brain wants to have some neuroplasticity or change or it won't do it. But that is actually helping the brain become more, basically have better skills at when it's off balance to get back in balance. So the light's really important. It's synchronized with what's going on with the sound. So when it's synchronized, like what's going on in the right ear and sound is going on in the left eye and vision. So and it's going back and forth all the time. Even though it looks like at times like the lights are flashing at the same time, they're just slightly off. Sometimes more, you can see it like going boom, boom, you know, like this. Now the lights in the ears, this was something we found out. There's red and blue lights in the ears. For those that are into the science, it's 630 nanometer wave and 470. And those are the light rays that are very healthy. There's only a very small band of frequencies that we really live in. If you look at the full spectrum of light from our sun, we live in a very small, narrow band. There's a lot of other frequencies out there, a lot of other, of course, we hear about the negative ones, but we never hear about the healing ones, really. You know, we know that 5G and things like that. And by the way, our headset has 0 electronic emission. We did that on purpose. And the frequencies actually cancel that all out. So if you have a device like this is a little device I bring, and some shows actually have me test it in front of them. But there's 0 emission of EMF. Even with Bluetooth, Bluetooth is 18 times less than your Wi-Fi in your home. So some people have found that to be, a problem. But blue light, actually, 470 nanometer light actually works as a protection against those radiation fields. But in the ears, we did this actually for children of autism. Basically, we were working with Joquita Handy, who's one of our speech pathologists that works out in California. And she wanted to know, hey, my kids, these were not high functioning. These were kids that couldn't understand. They were nonverbal. And she said, will it work on them? I said, you know what, let's see if we can broadcast a frequency that will turn the survivor brain off and turn on the thriving brain. And so we use a frequency, 197 hertz frequency. That light is not solid. It looks solid, but it's actually flashing 187 times a second. And the reason it's doing that, the brain is interpreting that like Morse code. In the nervous system, they now know the fascia that's in the body, that goes in the dura that's around the head. It's all one system. They consider that now in neuroscience like fiber optics would be for our cable networks. You know, it moves the light throughout the body through something called biophotons. And so we're activating the energy field. We're feeding the body energy in the form of light. And what happens is hemoglobin loves light. There's something called chromophores. Every cell of our body has them. A chromophore is kind of like a collector of energy like we would have for solar panels. So every cell has the capacity to store energy and then use it when it's needed. Now that usually happens every 40 seconds, so it's not like it holds that energy for a long time. When it broadcasts that light, that's what's called biophotic light. And it actually rebraids our DNA now. They know that 99% of our DNA is changed by the words we use, the foods we consume, the people we hang around with, basically everything we interact with. Our body is, not just our nervous system is very adaptive, but our whole biological system. So light plays a big role in that. So we want to say, how can we get more light into the brain? Because our brain is protected, right? We have this skull, and it's designed to make sure that we don't die if we get hit in the head and things like that. But also, our body is designed to bring light into it. So we don't get out as much as we used to, not just because of the pandemic, but just because we live in houses, we drive in cars, we're not outside all day long. We're designed to wake up in the morning, with the light from the sun, like I said, and go to sleep when the sun goes down, maybe sit by the campfire for a little bit. But we're not getting that. So our body's not getting the light dose it needs. But if we do it through the ears, like you're talking about acupuncture, there's meridians that run from the ear all the way through the body. So we can run energy through the body. And there's something called when you bring some light into the body, it actually goes throughout the whole body, called photobiomodulation. So when this happens, the light actually is lighting you up all over your body. Even though you have the headset on your head, it's going everywhere through the hemoglobin. And when that hemoglobin finds a cell that's dying, which they call apoptosis, or the P is actually silent, but I can't seem to get it right. But in the process, there's a cell dying. That cell, when it dies, it's lost its energy. That's all. Cells, they say, could stay alive for a lot longer. In fact, one experiment that they did in Harvard showed they could keep a chicken heart alive for 35 years, as long as they kept the toxins out and fed it nutrients. But then one night they forgot to feed it or something. I don't know what happened, but it died after 35 years. They felt like they could keep it alive forever. So our cells die prematurely, and a lot of that has to do with energy production called ATP at the mitochondrial level. So I know I might be getting a little too scientific, but in the process, what happens is the body absorbs this light, and then we are light beings. You've probably heard the expression, some metaphysical people say, I am light, and they're all gung-ho. The reality is science is proving that, yeah, you are all light. And the reason you can see me and I can see you is you're giving off your light right now, and we're transmitting and receiving light. And now we have technology that can pick that up, broadcast it around the world, and everybody else can see our light. So it's all part of the equation. Light, sound, and vibration is how our universe is created. And when I created the headset, we wanted to create a series of how could we get the body to mimic nature. So one small story, if we were all on my spaceship, which I have parked out back, and we were to move toward Earth, before we got to Earth, and we were to measure the frequency of the Earth has a resonating frequency between 0.1 and 100. The other thing in creation that does that is the human brain. Our human brain has a frequency response from 0.01 to 100. And what it does is anywhere we're at, I get chills every time I do this, because when we're around something, our body actually begins to resonate with it like a tuning fork. That's why if we get around people we really love and appreciate and we like being around, we feel really good. The brain creates those brain chemicals that make us feel good. And if we're around people we don't like, or they're saying a message we don't resonate with, we can even get violently ill because our body just will reject it. And that's how we know. If we were more in tune with our bodies, we probably wouldn't be in the mess we're in today, because people just disassociate. From here down, they pretend they don't have a body, and they just think everything's it's about being logical or making money or whatever's going on. And it's really, we want to be symbiotic with our environment, with our families, with our friends, coworkers. And when we're doing that, then our body functions much better.
Well, once again, there's so much to unpack there. What I took away from that is you are the light of the world. And you're using this light to help bring more light and to help get rid of the darkness. Such a wonderful tool. I've got a couple more questions. Once again, I want to give a shout out to Community America Bank. Thank you, Community America Credit Union, for helping sponsor the show and get this message out there in Advent Health. It helps give me some peace of mind. And when I'm hearing you, Patrick, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everybody should be using this technology. And there's the headset. And some people don't have access to a headset. They may just be able to use the app. And we're going to have in the comment section, we'll have a little QR code, and then we'll have a little sheet that'll tell you how you can download the app free for 15 days and use that. If you have more questions about the headset, you can reach Bailey at our office, Bailey Petty. She can tell you more about it. I know I have one at home, and you know what? I've not been using it enough. That's probably my biggest takeaway is I need to start using it a little bit more, especially with some of the different stress of the world. So I have a few more questions for both of you. I'm going to come to you, Carron.
Sure.
In the light of sleep, and you work with a lot of teenagers.
Yes.
What would you like their parents to know about sleep as we're going to go into the sleep campaign starting February 1st?
Well, it's really interesting you should say that. When I just trained all of Shawnee Mission, one of our local districts, their school counselors, I said, we need to be training the parents because these kids are either home or hybrid, and they're not educating them about the protective factors that we can be utilizing right now, which would be healthy sleep, which would be mindfulness, which would be all of these things that we have access to with these different meditations. And what I see is teens, they are addicted to devices, and unfortunately, they've become more and more addicting in that they feel like that's the only way that they can connect. So they're turning to that more and more, and it's that constant checking. And as we've said, the more things fire together, the more they wire together. So their brain wants more and more and more and more of that. And I think the social dilemma really spoke to how addicting that can be. And so they're up late, then they can't fall asleep because they have racing thoughts and increased anxiety, depression, and they're not getting adequate sleep. And when we don't get adequate sleep, our brain doesn't function as a whole. And I think one of the things that we've really talked about is, how do we get our brain to function as a whole? And with the brain tap, what I heard you saying, and I could be incorrect, was, we're wanting things to cross that corpus callosum, go from the right brain to the left brain, integrate. So we're using everything. And we can't do that when we're sleep deprived. Anxiety levels go through the roof. Panic goes through the roof. Kids' motivation goes down. And it is beyond detrimental. And these kids are waking up and doing school in their bed in their PJs and not even taking a shower. So, there are really basic things that we could say, okay, have sleep hygiene, wake up, do a meditation, take a shower, go to another room. And no one's telling parents that we really need to make sure our teens are doing this because they don't want to. They're in that defiant, impulsive, only able to think minute by minute, and they need our help now more than ever. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it really does answer my question. And as we start to once again shift the conversation to wrapping up, I love the word non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. And I try to think about what are my 3 non-negotiables to living well. And Dr. Porter, I'm going to come to you first. What are your 3 non-negotiables to living well?
Well, number one, I have been asked if Brain Tap was addictive, and I've been using the technology since '86. So I've not missed a day. So I think every day I have to do it because it's my drug of choice, really. Because we need to do something every day to offload that stress. That's number one. Number 2 is I've got to have movement. If I don't have movement during the day, I'm in trouble. Like I'm standing now. I stand almost all day now because a few years ago when they started talking about sitting is the new smoking, I don't smoke, so why would I sit all day, in doing things? And number 3, I need to learn something new every day. I've always looked for what can I learn every day that will help me as a person, and then maybe I can share that with my community. And it's because everything I do first, of course, it filters through me and then out to my community. So that's my 3 things that, those are on the top of my mind every morning, really, when I wake up. What new thing am I going to learn today, and how am I going to take care of my body and how am I going to recover?
Carron, I'm coming to you. What are your top 3 non-negotiables?
Well, I feel like it's been interesting. The pandemic has given me a new perspective, and some of that has shifted. And a non-negotiable for me is we are having family dinners. We are having that time when we are present and we are focused and actively engaged. We're playing, playing hide and seek, playing Candyland, connecting as a family. I am not willing to give that up. That's a huge one. I think movement and exercise for me is really important. It's a little hard with my boot, but luckily Dr. Robin is really healing me quickly. So I think that integrated approach, but exercise I think is really important and another way that we change our brain. And then I think for me, my job is my non-negotiable. It's my passion. I love it. When we talk about energy, I get to experience the energy of people making changes and growing, and it is wonderful and beautiful. And I think the more I've been living at home with my children, and so I think I'm going to make myself keep talking.
Well, I'll share my 3. Mine are sleep. Good quality sleep. 2 is gratitude. Okay. And the 3rd for me is hydration. If I get those 3 done every day, it sets my day up. And I find that when I have sleep, I'm able to get up to work out, like Patrick said, and I'm able to learn some different things. So such wonderful wisdom today as we were sharing about the brain. And for all of you listening today, you can find out more information at braintap.com. You can go to Aster Counseling, ASTER counseling.com. I'll let Desiree put that in the show notes. So, Patrick, is there anything that I forgot to cover that you want to cover today as we start to wrap up the show?
I think you covered everything. I think the biggest thing is that there are solutions out here for all these problems. It's just a matter of implementing them and making it a priority to work on yourself. And I think the most overlooked is recovery. What are you going to do? We can't just go all the time. And sleep, I love your sleep program. That is the biggest problem. With 2/3 of the American population before the pandemic not sleeping well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and we need to get people sleeping well. So I'm going to encourage everybody to join your sleep program, because once you sleep well, yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've been told I could sleep standing up. So, I came from 9 kids in my family, so we didn't have the pleasure of growing up in a silent room. So, I think that's key. And I think if people can do that, and I think that's the number one thing BrainTap does for people. When people ask me, what's the number one thing BrainTap does? It helps you to get deeper and better sleep. And then everything else works for you.
Yeah, I really used BrainTap for sleeping when I had my bicycle accident. And so huge fan. So Carron, what's the best way for people to reach you?
People can go to my website, or I think Dr. Robin, we might be linked up as well. I'm always happy to answer any questions. This is just my passion, and I love helping people. And like I said, this is just such a great resource that you can use in your own home that can empower people at a time of uncertainty and shift your mindset. And help you feel like you can choose and decide how you live. And I think that's really important, because a lot of us don't feel like we get to choose anymore. And we still do get to choose how we live and how we decide our day is going to be.
Control what you can. And we put together a wonderful handout for today that we'll also put in the show notes so that people could connect with us as well. So I always love to end the show with a question. I've got 2 questions. I'm going to only ask you one today because we've gone a little bit over. And I'm coming to you first, Dr. Porter. Do you have a favorite quote that you like to share?
Well, my favorite quote is that you're far greater than you've been led to believe. And, and you're more capable than others have told you about. I mean, I think so many people, they fight for their limitations. That's the key. We need to get rid of those limitations and just look for opportunities.
Oh, I love that quote. How about you, Carron? You have a favorite quote?
I do. I can't locate it at the minute because it's long, but basically it's the whole idea that the need for co-regulation never goes away. It always exists. Anytime as an adult, if you've been in a state of distress or a time of need, you've always been helped by a calmer, being. And I think right now that is so important that kids don't just need co-regulation, adults do, and we need each other, and we all need to help with that energy that we put out, because it can light up a room or it can burn one down, and we can really work on finding it and strengthening it and using it together.
Well, we all need each other, better together. Thank you, Dr. Porter and Carron, for joining me today. And once again, the show notes, you'll have how to find more information about BrainTap, how to find Dr. Porter also has a podcast, and how to find Carron and her team. I want to end the show, and I love this, Patrick Porter, one of your quotes: limitation is when you allow your future to be created out of your past or out of a pandemic. So let's take control of our future right now by doing some of the non-negotiables. I'd love to hear what your non-negotiables are for you to stay well. Over the next 3 or 4 weeks, you'll be hearing from other people about sleep and why it's important. And then on February 1st, we'll kick off our sleep 21 Days of Sleep Challenge. So, hey, I'm sending you all really big heart-to-heart hugs. And once again, Happy New Year to all of you. Thanks again, Patrick and Carron.
I sure appreciate you listening to Small Changes, Big Shifts. If you go to the website, smallchangesbigshifts.com, we'll have the show notes ready for you there. If this episode inspired you to make a small change that will lead to a big shift, please share with a friend. You can catch our episode on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and our website. And if you feel like it, please leave a rating or a comment. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch our episode next week. Blessings to you.